Viewers, I have a question for you. A lot of you are atheists, so you'll understand the struggle. As atheists, what do we struggle with the most? Well, obviously the answer is spirituality. What is it? How do you do it? Why? Can we not instead? All these questions and more will be answered when I respond to this video I found called An Atheist's Guide to Spirituality. I assume so, at least. I have no idea. Now, there's one major thing I need to address before I begin here, though, and that is I have a chair now. I have never been seen in the wild sitting. I sit now, at least for now. This is revolutionary. It's a staggering advancement in the lore. Someone needs to add this to my Wikipedia or fandom site or whatever I have. I'm also in this room. That's because I moved to a different room. For the last few videos I was outside, and that was because I walked outside. I know, it's a mile a minute around here. So hello sir, what do you got for me?
Hello.
Hello sir, what do you got for me?
I used to be a history teacher.
That's cool. Not sure how that qualification is relevant, but cool, yeah, that's cool. What do you got for me?
And I'm in my 40s.
That's great. You don't look a day over 55. But again, I don't know how that relates to what we're going to talk about here. It's got a bit of grade 2 book report energy. My name is Billy. I am 7 years old. This is my book report on Edward Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire.
And this channel is about just helping people out, understanding the world, this crazy world that we live in.
Dang, you know what? It is crazy, now that you mention it. I never thought of it like that before. Thank you. Now that I know that, I'm a little worried. I might not be prepared for the crazy. Can you help me out understanding this crazy world of ours?
And a few things that I've learned along the way, so you don't have to learn everything from scratch like I did.
Wait, you had to learn stuff? I never had to do that. I just know things. Not very impressive, Mr. Teacher. Anyway, what do you got for me?
So today's episode is about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is how to go from being a staunch atheist, which I was for the first 30-something years of my life.
A statement which in a lot of videos would make me extremely doubtful immediately. But you're not telling me about how you found Jesus and you secretly hated God the whole time. This seems like you switched on to vaguely wooey spirituality stuff, which honestly isn't even incompatible with atheism. You could have everything you talk about in this video while being an atheist. So it doesn't really seem like a big stretch.
Staunch atheist, to getting into the realm of spirituality, because it is very real and kind of difficult to understand.
Yeah, this is going to be the deep stuff here, guys, so get your thinking caps on. It's going to get hard to follow, so I hope you're ready.
So this is the beginner's guide, or the first step, so to speak, and I'll go further in other details, but one step at a time.
Oh, this is only step one? I'll be honest with you, I feel like I'm going to get fatigued after one step. This sounds really hard and taxing, so I'm just going to take the one step, and wherever I am after that step, I'm just going to stay there for a while.
Alright, so how do you get from atheist to just step one?
How do you get from atheistic to step one? Well, I think definitionally there's only one step it could be that is one step away from being an atheist, right? Which is believe in God. Because if you don't do that, then you haven't actually stepped away from being an atheist at all. So that's the step. If that's the step you want me to step, I'm not going to step it.
Alright.
We have an accord.
So this is going to be very real and practical. I'm not going to try to convince you to, or not ask you to believe in anything.
I guess I appreciate that, although it does make for better content, so I sort of wish you would, but that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Just use your own common sense.
I don't think you want me to do that. As usual, my common sense is screaming at me to turn this video off and go outside and do something useful.
So, step one of spirituality is to recognize that most things in the world you cannot perceive, right?
Right. I think that's a fair assessment. Microscopic things, atoms, stuff that's outside the range of any of your sense perception, like on the other end of town.
This might sound odd.
No, that sounds pretty normal. I think perceiving most things in the world all at once would be odd.
You walk around the world, you're like, I perceive most things, right?
No, I've literally never said that to myself. Why would I think that? Especially as something I explicitly think. I don't really have that kind of thought. It's weirdly specific.
No, not really.
I stand corrected.
Consider things like most of the energy in the world is dark energy.
I don't really need to consider that. That's already reaching for some weird niche example. Most of the energy in the world, dark or not, is not perceptible to me right now. You already said this is a hard topic to understand. You don't have to make it harder to understand by bringing up concepts like dark energy.
Can you perceive dark energy or dark matter? No.
Sure, no.
You think you're looking around in the world because you can see things in the world, but you can only see a small spectrum.
Sure, I can only see a small part of the light spectrum, but that doesn't mean I'm not looking around in the world. You said that like you think you're looking around, but... And then you said something that doesn't address that.
Then there's like ultraviolet, and there's like what's the red one?
Well, red is the red one.
I don't know.
That's cool, it doesn't matter. I'm starting to think nothing here is going to matter.
All the different spectrums of the light spectrum, and most of it you cannot see, right?
I can't see most of the spectrums of the spectrum.
If I were to ask you, name all of the living entities, be them animal, people, whatever.
I will forgive speaking as if humans are categorized outside of animals. It's casual speech, I understand your meaning. If I thought you literally meant humans are not animals, I might approach it differently, but I don't see any reason to think that.
Within just like 100 yards of you. Could you name them?
Like if I was Adam and you brought them before me and asked me to name them? Eventually, I guess, sure. I'm joking. I'm not willfully misunderstanding you.
No, because actually the vast bulk of them are bacteria which are invisible to you. They, and others, just small little creatures going around.
True, and you know what? That's a much more accessible example than dark energy. It's way more grounded. I think we should stick with stuff like this.
There's thousands of them, right? Only a few people, maybe a few animals. And they can have a huge effect on your life, obviously, right? They can decide whether you're going to be in good health or bad health, but you can't perceive them.
Sure, you're not going to get any disagreement from me on the point that there are things that I can't see, such as small organisms. I'm with you on this part. And that's great. But I hope that we're not going to do something like, hey, there's this one thing you can't perceive, but it's reasonable to believe in because of extrapolation from local conditions, to therefore whatever else I say exists and you can't perceive must exist. I don't know if we're going that direction. I'm just saying let's not.
Other people can perceive them with powerful microscopes, but you cannot perceive them, right?
No, actually, they can't perceive them either because every organism within 100 yards of me is not under their microscope right now. That would be quite a staggering accomplishment, really. But if what you're saying is that microorganisms in general are only visible to other people with powerful microscopes, and I'm not one of those people, well, I am actually. I own a pretty good microscope, and I have looked at bacteria from within 100 yards of me. I took them right out of the yard, albeit in the past. So I can actually do that, but even I would not be able to look at literally all of them.
So thousands of organisms. By far, 99% of the organisms in your immediate vicinity, you cannot perceive.
You've said thousands of organisms a couple times now. Do you mean thousands of organisms or thousands of species of organisms? Because that's more accurate. There are way more than just thousands of individual organisms. Although in fairness, I guess any number beyond the thousands range still is technically thousands.
Right? And the list goes on.
That is true. I guess it does.
Right? You can just see this all day long. So most of the world is imperceptible to you, and yet it does exist.
I agree. We are 3 minutes in, and I've agreed with mostly everything you've said. This is a scary new feeling. I don't know how to process this.
So we have to figure out a way to acknowledge that there are things that we cannot see, cannot hear, whatever, but they do exist, and people have found ways to interact with them in different ways, right?
I have to figure it out. Okay, figuring, hold on. All right, I figured it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say acknowledged, and then I've done it. So, acknowledged. That was tough.
So we invented microscopes so we can at least see the bacteria, right? We can sort of see the other spectrums of light with the right gear and whatnot.
Sure. I find it kind of awkward to talk about multiple spectra, because light is really just one spectrum, but then again, it is really common to say things like the visible light spectrum. People divide up the overall light spectrum into subspectra. So I guess that complaint doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm only throwing this in here so people don't comment about it. Also, spectra is the plural, not spectrums, please. I can kind of excuse that one. It's not a word people use all that often. Also, Isaac Newton wrote spectrums a bunch of times in his Optics with a CK. It's been a thing for quite a while. So I guess I kind of have to let that one slide, even though I would definitely beef with Newton on this point. It doesn't bother me nearly as much as when people say, this happened a millennia ago, which makes me want to do unspeakable things to myself. Unspeakable at least on YouTube. I'd say it on LiveLeak, but I don't think that's around anymore. The internet used to be cool.
So spirituality is not so technologically based.
Right, true, yeah. You can't develop technology to see the spiritual. You can't actually detect it in any way at all. It doesn't seem to affect anything, which is what stuff that isn't there does. And also stuff that you have no actual reason to believe in.
But just getting into this unseen realm, unheard realm, right? Past the five senses, so to speak. And interacting with that in a useful way.
Look, obviously I don't have a problem with the idea of detecting things that are undetectable with human senses on their own. My thing is more that to think there's something there at all, it should probably be in some way detectable. But there are at least inferences from other things that we can directly detect. And then, of course, conclusions about what they are, how they work, and so on are not drawn beyond what those inferences can reasonably establish, which is why they're mysterious and sort of placeholder concepts. You can't know more about them than what you can reasonably infer from the evidence. Now, how does spirituality compare to this or to looking at organisms under the microscope? When you say it's not as technologically based, what you mean is there is no technology that can detect it. You might even say it's undetectable that way in principle. Possibly. Of course, someone like Steve Huff with his stupid-ass guitar amp ghost box might beg to differ, but I'm on your side on this issue. So what do we do? How can we detect any of this, and then, as you say, use it?
Okay, so this is going to be step one. Here's the first one.
All right, here we go, finally.
I would argue you get told you have five senses. It seems fairly clear to me you actually have at least six senses.
I would agree. For example, a big one is proprioception. The sense you don't really think about having until you don't have it, and then you are sad.
And you can tell this. So your sixth sense, arguably, is your sense of a person's energy. Ever, you're not even talking to them, they're just in the room or whatever, and you can get a sense of them, of their energy. Are they confident? Or is it like a false confidence? Are they kind of shy and reserved? What's going on?
Well, you're right that you can do that. But when you say energy, what do you mean? Are we talking about literal waves of energy coming off of the person? Some sort of technologically undetectable waves of energy? Is this the dark energy? Is that why you brought it up? Can this energy pass through the walls of an opaque, soundproof black box? Can you detect someone's energy under those conditions? I suspect in a controlled experiment you would not do all that well with that. Which to me would imply some explanation other than energy waves beaming into your spirit or whatever. Perhaps a different form of energy waves, like visible light or waves through the air, which no doubt are energetic phenomena. Phenomena, by the way, when there's more than one. If there's only one, it's not a phenomena, it's a phenomenon. This is not about you, video guy, I'm just educating people because I hear this too much. This kind of mispluralization seems to be turning mainstream and I hate it.
You can actually, if you're sensitive enough, tell quite a bit about a person without ever talking to them.
Of course, I agree. There are other things about a person beyond just speech that imply things about their mood, their attitude, personality. Look, dude, you're in your 40s. I'm almost in my 40s. I think we can be reasonably confident that we've both figured this out by now. Obviously, I know about this. I see no reason to attribute it to anything like some vague the spirit, so I hope that you have something better than this.
Just by their energy alone, just how they carry themselves.
Those are two different things. The energy is some undefined nonsense. How they carry themselves is visible. Things like the latter, how they carry themselves, is probably a big part of what you're interpreting as the former, their energy. So now that you've established that there's normal physical stuff that people can do that leads to you interpreting how they're feeling or what they're like or whatever without them speaking, can we move on from this to something else since there doesn't seem to be much of a path from here to the spirit now?
Tone of voice, all sorts of things, even if they're not talking to you, right?
So a visible thing and an audible thing are your examples of things you can interpret as people's energy. Yes, I agree that light and sound are real phenomena and that humans can interpret things about other humans humans upon seeing and hearing them. And?
The more sensitive you get, the more information you can pick up on them.
Which seems to be a way of saying that you as a human, as you gain more experience with other humans, you can learn to more accurately interpret people's mental states when you see and hear them. Yes, that's a thing, indeed. My baby's going through that right now, slowly figuring out what it means when people act a certain way and altering her own behaviors to align better with that. Again, I ask, and?
And this information, it's not seen, it's not heard.
Yes, it is. You just said how they carry themselves, their tone of voice. That's seen and heard. I mean, I guess like your interpretation of what that means isn't seen or heard. That's learned through training, experience. But this energy thing you're talking about definitely seems to be something seen and heard. And again, if you want to prove me wrong, let's meet up and do an experiment where you show me that you can reliably do this without seeing or hearing anything. Good luck.
Right? It's felt. You feel the energy, right? And with some people, it's like really intense, and some people it's much less intense. And again, the more sensitive you get, the more you can feel everybody out.
Look, when you're in the room with somebody and you can detect their body language or their tone of voice or their breathing, or maybe they're not talking when you would expect them to, or talking too much when you wouldn't expect them to, or whatever it is, sure, your process of making a determination about what they're feeling and thinking and so on won't necessarily feel like a conscious intellectual process, of course. You will just kind of have a feeling about what the situation is. But that feeling isn't coming from nowhere. It's coming from your brain processing sensory information as well as your own biases and mood and other internal factors within your body. This is learned interpretation. It's no different from, for example, when you're on the road and you predict in advance what's going to happen better as you gain experience as a driver. And this is why you've mentioned a couple times that this interpretive ability improves as you get more sensitive. In other words, as this interpretive ability improves, as you absorb more training data. It's starting to sound like you want to take a normal brain function and turn it into woo. What's the point of doing that?
And indeed, you'll kind of notice that even if you're not particularly sensitive, when you meet people, you're not just like logically deciding like what kind of person they are. You can kind of do that a little bit, but you don't typically have a lot of information on them. It's more like you feel what kind of person they are, right? For most people.
Yes, I agree this is not primarily a logical process. It's not a math problem. The human brain does other things that aren't just consciously, rationally solving problems with logic. Spiritual does not just mean feelings-based, or not logical, or unconscious, or anything like that. It's a reference to the supernatural, to non-physical reality. Now, of course, atheists know that you can interpret things about people really quite reliably, of course imperfectly, but pretty reliably, based on their behavior. And I would be very surprised if you didn't think we know that. If you, as a staunch atheist for 30 years, genuinely didn't realize that the entire time. No, I would guess that the reason that you're posing this as dichotomous with atheism is that you think of atheism as a rejection of the supernatural in general, and you're thinking of this interpretation of human behavior as some action of the supernatural soul dwelling within you. But if you were an atheist, you would have already been aware of this and had a different interpretation, presumably. So you know that this is not the only interpretation. You know that feeling how people feel doesn't necessarily point to anything supernatural, or at least that people are not necessarily going to see that necessity. So how is this going to function as an argument? Is there going to be more to this that somehow establishes it as supernatural? I'll spoil it. The answer is no. There's no more argument here. He basically just dwells on this for the rest of the video. I will show you. Come along.
If you're particularly unsensitive to people's energy, you might have a more rigid, like, logical... I'm a huge fan of logic.
I'm a huge fan! I got one of those big foam fingers that says Logic on it. Every time I go to the Logic games, I paint my face the Logic colors.
But sometimes you just feel it.
Okay, so Mr. Number One Big Logic fan. Do a syllogism at me. Squirt me with your syllogism. Premise 1. When you see how someone is acting, you can feel that it means something. Something, something, therefore spirit. You can fill in the blanks. This is your wheelhouse.
You can kind of feel like their excitement or their worry or whatever, right?
Yeah, you're right. This video is really weird because I feel like I grant basically everything you say and then disagree with the conclusion you want to lead me to because it's a complete non sequitur. Normally I would disagree a lot more with the premises, but here I can just go, yeah, you're right, but that doesn't obviously mean anything you think it means.
So we're communicating constantly between all of each other as humans. You kind of do it with like, dogs and that, but much more sophisticated with us humans. We're feeling each other out, right?
Yeah. Let's just continue. We're repeating ourselves too much here. We got to get through this quicker.
So you can get a sense of like who this person is fairly quickly, and the more you develop it, the more information flows to you, the quicker it is. And you can just get better at understanding people at a deeper level.
We're just spinning our wheels here, buddy. Going around and around, same old thing. If it had some function in any argument, it'd be a different issue. I would spend more time on it. I'd have a bit more patience with it, but I won't, because I don't. Read my body language, okay? Listen to my tone of voice.
Right, you can kind of see sometimes behind their act. It's like, yeah, your words say this, but your energy says this, right?
Sure. I feel like mine are pretty aligned right now, so that's good. It should be really obvious what needs to happen, which is that you say, therefore spirit, or whatever, and then end the video.
Ever had a wife? Just kidding.
Yes. Don't scoff. It's not so absurd to think I might have one. Jeez, it's not that unlikely. It's true, I really have one. Wait a minute. You're joking, aren't you? I can suddenly feel it in my spirit. That was funny. That was good. That was a good one. It took me a minute to realize that was a joke, but yeah, that was humorous. Reminds me of watching Just for Laughs in the 90s. Feeling nostalgic now.
So, that would be an example of a sixth sense.
No, it would not.
You feel energy, right?
Yeah, but everything you interpret about what you see and hear is a feeling in whatever sense you're saying. But that doesn't make the feeling a sense. The senses themselves are seeing and hearing.
That you're sensing energy, and it's a very real thing.
What is, the energy or the feeling? Your feelings are real. You have feelings. You're a human. The energy, though, can you give me some way to detect this energy, to distinguish it from light and sound? I proposed an experiment already. Maybe you'll come back and you'll say, oh, it won't work through an opaque box, very conveniently. Okay, then we'll come up with something else, but there has to be some way to distinguish it, right? You're proposing a new form of energy that's entirely unobserved, and I assume non-physical and supernatural, solely based on the fact that you can interpret body language. By the way, I have no idea what it means to have energy that's non-physical. Energy is a physical concept, but if we're saying this is spiritual energy, then what the hell does that mean?
And people even try to cover it up, right? They try to like project confidence to you, right? But you can kind of like, this seems like a false energy, right? Or you can kind of tell the opposite is true.
Sure, yeah. What if it turns out you were wrong? Can you be wrong about this? And if so, how does that work? Because this is energy that's definitively transmitting some kind of information to you, right? Can the transmission get garbled? Or can someone beam out the wrong kind of energy? How does that work? Is there some kind of glitch in the spirit field? Or is the transmission just always right, but your reception of it might be wrong? I'd say I'm interested to learn more of the details on how you think this all works, but I'm not, so I'd be lying. And you'd know it. You're a very sensitive spirit receiver.
So that is a really useful thing to have in the world. Like I said, I used to be a history teacher.
And then he goes off talking about how the students would lie sometimes and he could tell and whatever. So the reason for mentioning that this is useful seems to be, based on what was said before, to try to put this spirituality on a similar plane of usefulness to science and technology. What the motivation is for that, I could speculate, I suppose, but I won't.
Okay, I think you get it.
I think I do. Are we done?
So that would be a really useful ability to get better at. We're all getting better at it all the time, and being aware of it is the first step in getting better at it.
No, actually, not really. The first step in getting better at it is interacting with people. Hence why, as I said, my baby is very obviously getting better at it all the time. They're learning all the time, including pattern recognition like this. I know that pattern recognition is not as, emotionally fulfilling of a term as energy or spirit or whatever, but it's more accurate and useful.
And that is your first step into interacting with the unseen forces around you.
Can I get an example that isn't just body language? What are some unseen forces? Tell me about those. We're probably not going to get that. We're quite a ways through the video here. Maybe that's in step 2, and I don't think I'm going to take step 2, so we'll never know.
So I hope that helps you get into at least one step up from what I would call the atheist worldview, which...
How would people exuding some sort of mood energy that you can detect be incompatible with atheism? That doesn't imply a god in any way. There are plenty of woo-brained spiritual atheists. That's really quite common. You know what? I said before that I didn't really have a reason to doubt that you were a staunch atheist for 30 years, but you do kind of seem confused about what atheism is, so I am starting to wonder. Maybe you were an atheist while also not really knowing what that is. And then for some reason, despite your ignorance, you were staunch about it. A word I absolutely despise, by the way, and that is so often paired with atheist. Staunch sounds way too close to raunch, or even worse, to gaunch. Look up that regional term if you don't know it. So staunch has an unpleasant sound by association.
Or like some people call it the materialist worldview, you know, just...
That's better than the atheist worldview, at least. That would have been the better choice from the start. But nothing you've said in this video does anything with regard to that.
But to a spiritual worldview of there's a lot more going on than you can see with the five senses.
The fact that there are things that you can't sense with your five senses doesn't make those things spiritual. That's not what that means. And I have to admit, I'm a bit confused what you think the word spiritual actually means. Because you don't just mean things that you can't directly sense. I don't think you mean dark energy, dark matter, bacteria in your yard that you're not presently looking at. I think those were supposed to be examples of non-spiritual things that nevertheless you can't perceive with your five senses. So I guess spiritual means non-physical, so when you talk about this energy that comes off of people, it's some sort of non-physical energy, which seems like a contradiction in terms. And it's one that you can perceive, just not with any of the traditional five senses, but with a sixth one that you also have in the same way as the other ones, which sounds like a scientific proposal, kind of in the scientific category of an extra sense, and that's it. But I guess the point is that it's a sense that can perceive non-physical things as opposed to the other senses that perceive the physical. I don't know, maybe it all just means nothing.
It's useful to know about it.
What is that thing you're doing with your hands? Does it symbolize something, or what is that? I'm getting a real weird reading on your body language here, bro.
And it's useful to interact with it, and you are up and on your way in spirituality.
I am definitely not on the way that you want me to be on at this point.
Okay, hopefully that was helpful.
It definitely wasn't, but I guess thanks for trying. At least I got a video out of it, and that's more than nothing.
Have a good one.
You as well. That was a video. Alright, thank you everybody for watching. If you would be so kind, please do subscribe and like before you go. To all of my supporters, thank you so much. You're the ones keeping this thing going. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For early access, email list.logicked.com, and I'll see you next time.